welcome to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. Now we're going to discuss a very, very interesting subject on the same-sex marriage judgment that was delivered by the Supreme Court yesterday. A lot of people in the country want to know the implications of this judgment, the road ahead, what is going to happen, implications on society, so on and so forth. Since there is a lot of curiosity, we decided to do a show, what we call an explainer, explaining a larger audience about the implications of this judgment. I have with me Niharika Karanjawala Misra. She is Principal Associate with Karanjawala and Company. She was part of the case and she will explain to us what happened in the court. Good to see you, Niharika. And at the outset, could you give me an introduction comment on what happened in court yesterday?
Absolutely. So yesterday, when the judgment was pronounced, it was first indicated that there were 4 separate judgments written by the Honorable Chief Justice, one written by Justice Kaul, one written by Justice Bhatt on his behalf as well as Justice Kohli's behalf, and one written by Justice Narasimha. So each of the honorable judges read out portions of their judgments as well as the operative aspects of their judgments. The Honorable Chief Justice and Honorable Justice Kaul had taken a more progressive, let's say, approach, gone a bit further on the question of rights. And while they all felt that they could not eke out room in the Special Marriage Act for same-sex marriages, as they all felt that that would be impinging slightly upon the legislative sphere, Honorable Justice Chandrachud and Justice Kaul stated that they would be in favor of the formation and recognition of a civil union as well as the recognition of adoption rights for same-sex couples. The majority judgment, however, penned by Justice Bhatt, concurred with by Justice Narasimha and Justice Kohli, stated that they would not be able to, they were not able to find a fundamental right to marriage, as the other 2 justices felt as well. They also determined that without getting into the legislative sphere, they would not be able to eke out a practical system for civil union. And though they felt that taking steps towards ending discrimination towards members of the LGBTQ community was necessary, they felt that these steps must emanate from the state. So they were all in agreement on the fact that a committee ought to be formed by the state to look into these issues of discrimination.
Okay. Now, if you could share with us the practical implications of this majority judgment in about 3 to 4 points.
Right. So the practical implication of the majority judgment, Tarun, is that the law as it stands today has not been changed. The law as it stands today remains the same, and we are in the same position as we were prior to the deliverance of this judgment. However, what all the honorable justices were in agreement about was that there is discrimination faced by members of the LGBTQ community. There is a need to alleviate this discrimination. There is a need to recognize an individual's rights in terms of the person that they choose, to be with, cohabit with, etc. And that the state needs to form a committee. Now, one thing we must remember is this is not a committee being imposed upon the state by the court. This was a committee that the state offered to set up through the learned Solicitor General, Mr. Tushar Mehta. He in his arguments had stated that the right way forward would be for this to happen through legislation, and had stated that the state should set up a high-powered committee. So the honorable justices have taken him up on that offer and said that it should be set up. So that is the implication as of now. Legally, things remain unchanged. However, it has been moved to the ambit of the legislature now to take steps that all the honorable justices felt were required in this regard to remove discrimination from the community. So one thing we are very hopeful for, especially since this was a suggestion by the state itself for the right way forward, we are very hopeful that there won't be delay in formation of this committee, and that this committee will take all of these aspects into very serious consideration. The Honorable Justice also said that members of the LGBTQ community should be consulted on what issues they face day to day that this committee can help to alleviate. So we are very hopeful that the state takes genuine steps and fast steps in this regard. Because if you recall, even in the Navte Johar judgment, Justice Nariman had stated that the state should take steps to ensure integration of the LGBTQ community in society. And unfortunately, to this point in time, no such steps have been taken. So that is the practical implication of the majority judgment.
Now, a lot of people are curious to know about adoption rights. I would want to know your opinion on the adoption rights issue, and if you could explain it in detail.
Absolutely. So, adoption rights is one thing that I think was both very important but fraught with a lot of opposition in this case. Right now, as the judgment stood, the dissenting judges, Honorable Chief Justice Chandrachud and Honorable Justice Kaul, both have felt that an extension of adoption rights to members of the LGBTQ community would make sense. Now, currently, under our system, a heterosexual couple may adopt a child, a single individual may adopt a child, right? And by virtue of the Kara circular that Chief Justice Chandrachud struck down, but ultimately is not struck down, as that was the dissent opinion, it stipulates that a single individual in a live-in relationship may not adopt a child, a live-in unmarried relationship. So you have a strange dichotomy in the law here, where on one hand, we are happy to have an individual adopt as a single parent. On the other hand, we say if that single parent is in a relationship that is a live-in relationship but is not a married relationship, it cannot be a feasible situation. And as the ground situation is, Tarun, there are thousands upon thousands of children in this state, all over this country, who are looking for decent homes, children who are homeless, children who are languishing in juvenile centers, in orphanages. They are not adequately cared for. This is a big lacuna, and the fact of the matter is, the number of those children that are even put up for adoption, it's a knife edge of the number of children that actually require good homes in this country. Ms. Aishwarya Bhati, while addressing on behalf of the state, had raised this poignant issue, which really ought to be something that's looked into from the perspective of the welfare of the children. Now, when we come to the point of the welfare of the children, this is an aspect that people have hit upon a great deal, saying we don't know enough. Will children be raised by a same-sex couple? Will they be disadvantaged in some way? Will they be ill-raised in some way? Now, in these regards, Tarun, I believe in fully following the science. I am not agenda-driven about these things, right? And what the science shows us is that there is no measurable disadvantage to children raised in a same-sex home. They are equal on almost every regard. In measures of academic performance, they seem to marginally outperform children raised in a heterosexual household. That being said, that is likely because of financial differences and nothing else. But what you're seeing is there's no disadvantage to a child being raised in a same-sex couple's household. That is what we're clearly seeing from the science, and especially considering the thousands upon thousands of children that need good homes in this country. That would have been a measure that I personally would have been very happy to see, especially since it doesn't make full sense. It seems a little arbitrary that as a gay person, you can adopt as a single individual. You can't adopt if you're in a couple, right? That again doesn't seem to make full sense to me. Because, and I know a lot of people, I know a lot of gay couples who have kids, who have adopted as single parents. But then the problem is ultimately the other parent, even though they fulfill every role of a parent and have the role of the parent in that child's eyes, they're on none of the paperwork. They're on nothing legally recognized. Ultimately, what does the law doesn't recognize you as having even a base relationship with that individual. So for that parent, for example, if you're looking at a last decision situation in a hospital scenario or something like that, that child has no right to go and make last end of life decisions or anything like that for that parent, even though they are the person that raised you. So there's a huge lacuna here, that we need to look into, both for the equality of members of the LGBTQ community who both have families and aspire to have families, as well as for the rights of the thousands of children who are being left to languish in juvenile homes all over the country.
Okay, now we move ahead as societies develop, laws develop to suit the changing society. And that's why I want to know from you that what you believe or what you feel, you think is the way forward on this issue.
Right. So now, as we've seen it, this argument now moves from the courts into both the public domain as well as before the legislature. Because in order for something to take legislative priority and have legislative intent, there needs to be a significant measure of social acceptance as well. Right? Now, here, so I think it's a twofold scenario. First, my hopes for what the committee will do. Like I said, my hope is that the committee will look into this matter expeditiously, set up expeditiously, and take it very seriously. And also, in this regard, Chief Justice Chandrachud has given a number of suggestions in his judgment, which, despite being the minority judgment, being the words of the Chief Justice of India, ought to have a lot of persuasive value to the committee on how they ought to consider moving forward, and should form, I would hope, would be taken as a measure of guidance as well into what should be looked into, especially with regards to the setting up of safe homes for LGBTQ youth who have been disowned, who have been thrown out of their homes, setting up of a hotline number to safeguard people, sensitivity to police, things like sensitivity training to police, things like this. When you come down to it, are very important on a day-to-day basis, right? It's equally as important as looking into the other issues of joint bank accounts, end-of-life decisions in hospitals recognizing couples, recognizing partners who may not necessarily be married as family who can make end-of-life decisions. It's all extremely significant. So hopefully Justice Chandrachud's suggestions in this regard are also taken into account. Now, when you look at the legislature, again, like I said, it can't help but come to a slightly political issue, right? And now we are also in a place where we are in the run-up to an election year. So all of these things become significant. One major concern everybody had was the LGBTQ community being so minor, not forming any measurable vote bank. That is one of the reasons that they have, in point of fact, not been championed by any single political party. No single political party has gotten behind them and made this an election issue or made this a priority for themselves and said that this is, equality to this community is what we're going to do. Nobody has. So from that perspective also, I think it's important that the legislature and all elected representatives who hope to be in power here and after take into account that this is an issue of numbers. This isn't just members of the LGBTQ community themselves, which are not negligible. This is their families. This is us, their friends, their allies. It is a matter of significance to us, and it is a matter that should be taken into quick consideration if they choose to remain our elected representatives and if they choose to represent us as India in the future. I think that is the only way to make what is essentially a political issue significant. Show that there are numbers behind it, show that there is power behind it. And I think that is also a need of the day. And that would be, in my hopes for what the committee will do, I think that is also a second part of an important issue forward, making it clear to the legislature that this is a significant issue to a lot of us. I think that would be the way forward for this. And one doesn't know how quickly the way forward will actually lead to the outcome that people want. Change sometimes comes in increments. It comes often with a lot of struggle. And but this is a very resilient community. This is a community that has been through a lot of discrimination, a lot of oppression. And I feel that they are well armed, well prepared for the battle ahead.
Thank you for in detail explaining to us the implications of the same-sex marriage judgment. You, of course, have been involved in this issue for long. It was of benefit to the audience because they get an analysis and an understanding of what's happened and what's the road ahead. Appreciate you joining us, Niharika.
Thank you, Tarun. Thank you for having me on.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.